Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer in that order. Welcome everyone. Today I want to look at some of the most insane price increases and some of those insane price decreases in sports cards over the last few years. And there were a lot to choose from. I picked 5 of each that I thought were pretty interesting. We're going to count them down in this video to the most extremes. So the most extremes will be at the end of the video. And also we're going to sprinkle in 5 more normal price situations just to maintain our sanity. All right, leading off with the number 5 ranked good, bad, and normal. And we'll start with the good, meaning the cards that have seen incredible increases in value over the last few years. 2009 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor Steph Curry rookie. We're using the PSA Mint 9 as our example. And every card on here, I wanted to make sure there was an actual sale back then and recently. So yeah, the Curry lined up with that. This card's still numbered out of 50. And imagine being back in 2018 and seeing this card available for $8,000. That's a lot of money to pay for a card when this card did sell for $8,000 on eBay in August of 2018. Well, recently a PSA 9 a copy of the card sold on Heritage back in May for $237,900, almost $250,000 for this PSA 9 Steph Curry Gold Refractor rookie. That's basically a 30x multiplier over the last 7 years. So yeah, that's leads off our list of the good. Coming in with our number 5 bad, 2019 Panini Prizm Silver Prizm Zion Williamson rookie PSA Gem Mint 10. This is one of the poster cards of the COVID boom in 2020-21. Back in 2020 or late 2020, this card was selling well over $5,000. Here's an example of a copy that sold for $6,525 on eBay in December of 2020. Well, 5 years later, recent copies sell for under $300. Here's a recent one that went for $268 on eBay. And that is a 96% loss in value over the last 5 years on this Zion card. And sprinkling in our first normal here, 1968 Topps Willie Mays PSA 6, solid upper mid-grade card of an all-time great Hall of Famer. This is a 60-year-old card now almost at this point, but yeah, solid condition card of an all-time great. And some of the quote-unquote normals did see some crazy price movements around COVID, but we're just looking at back then and then now today. So back in mid-2020 or so, this was about a $100 card in a PSA 6. Here's an example of one that sold for $98 in September of 2020. And today, 5 years later, it goes for about $160. Here's an example of a recent sale at $162. So that's a 65% increase over the last 5 years. Yeah, that's sort of more or less what I would expect long-term in regards to, vintage Hall of Famers in solid condition. All right, number 4 on the list of good, bad, and ugly. Good, bad, and normal. The good, 1985 Topps Tiffany Mark McGwire rookie, PSA 10. And the Topps Tiffany's have really exploded in value over the last few years, particularly like the key rookies, such as this McGwire. And this is essentially Mark McGwire's best card in the hobby, other than, maybe some really, really crazy rare 90s inserts. But this is basically his best rookie in best condition realistically possible. Going back to 2012, so 13 years ago, you could get the card for under $1,000. Here's an example of one that sold for $866. And pull out your change purse and throw an extra 33 cents on top of that. Today it sells for a little bit more. Just a week ago on Heritage, a PSA 10 copy sold for $30,500. As again, the demand for Tiffany's have really exploded lately. That is a 35 times multiplier over the course of 13 years. Still waiting on that time machine. All right, the bad, and went a little obscure for this one. 2020 Topps Now Formula One Lewis Hamilton. It's card number 3 in the set, and the PSA Gem Mint 10. And what happened around COVID, or one of the things that happened during COVID, was that all-time great players in some of the other sports just shot way up in value to crazy levels. And Lewis Hamilton was definitely an example of this. This card is Topps Now. It's a low-end product, and this card's not rare or anything. But he just had so few cards on the market at the time that people were so desperate to get a Lewis Hamilton card that they were way overpaying for anything. And this is definitely a notable example. Back in 2021, there was a sale of this card in a PSA 10 for $5,400, and this is not like a one-off sale. There were no other sales of the card around this value. And today the card sells for under $200, which is where it belongs. As again, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that significant of a card. So that's a 96.5% loss in value on this card in roughly 4 years. And our normal example, to bring us back down to earth for a sec, 1997 Topps Chrome Refractor, Tim Duncan rookie in a PSA Gem Mint 10. And you'll notice none of the normal examples are ultra modern. Maybe there's a message there. But this card sold for around $2,500 back in 2017, so 8 years ago. Here's an example that went for $2,444. And today, the card sells for around $5,000. Here's one that went for $5,100 in early October. And yeah, so the card's basically doubled in 8 years or so. And that's, again, kind of what I would have expect long-term on a key rookie of an all-time great player, such as this Topps Chrome Refractor Tim Duncan rookie. On to number 3, good, bad, and normal, as we get gooder and badder. First, the good. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a 1940 Superman, card number 1, Superman. PSA X Mint plus 6.5. And non-sports cards have really seen a huge increase in interest over the last 5 years, we'll say, including very much so superhero cards. And this is the very first Superman card in the very first Superman set, so a very key issue. Back in 2011, this PSA 6.5 sold for $565. So we're talking about 14 years ago. The same exact card, same serial number and all, sold earlier this year. And if the buyer of the card here at $565 held it all that time and then sold it in January, they are looking pretty good, as it went for $40,000 in a heritage auction in January of this year. That is a 71x multiplier on this Superman card. Yeah, and really highlights the massive increase in demand on key non-sports cards. The bad, 2017 Panini Prizm Gold Prizm, Deshaun Watson rookie, PSA Gem Mint 10. The gold prisms are serial numbered out of 10. And back in 2021, Deshaun Watson was one of the best young quarterbacks in the game, and this card sold for $44,280. Now his career has taken a turn for the worst, to say the least, and he's either out of the league or I don't know what his status is, but basically is no longer, you know, a quarterback in the NFL for all intents and purposes. Recently, the same exact card, same serial number and all, sold for just over $1,144. That was in early October of 2025. That is more than a 97% loss in value on this card. And it begs the question, like, who's paying $1,000 today for any Deshaun Watson card? Like, I feel like this actually could have been worse. On to the normal, which might surprise you. It surprised me, as I was actually looking up this card. I don't know a lot about Pokemon, but I do recognize this card, and I was looking it up as a potential, you know, good for the video. But it actually was more in line with the normal. And this is essentially the holy grail of Pokemon cards, as I understand it. 1999 Pokemon game, first edition holo, Charizard, and using the PSA 7 as our example. If you go back to early mid 2023, this card was selling around $9 grand. Here's a $9,000 sale in April of 2023. Today the card sells for a little over 12 grand, or the last sale was a little over 12 grand, $12,101 a couple of years later. And, you know, that's despite the massive increase in demand in Pokemon over the last year plus, or whatever it is. Like, you might have guessed, or I would have guessed, that this card would have gone up a lot more. But I think it's actually kind of healthier that it's showing, you know, more slow, steady growth instead of going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yeah, about a 34% growth over 2.5 years or so. Yeah, for the holy grail of Pokemon cards, that feels about right or normal to me. Number 2, good, bad, and normal, and we're going to start to see some really wild price movements over the course of a few years. I had to have a 1990s Michael Jordan insert on here, as his 90s inserts have gone absolutely berserk over the last 5 years. 1998 Skybox EX Century Dunkin' Go Nuts, one of my favorite insert set names of all time. Even has the Dunkin' Go Nuts like font and colors. I don't know. I wonder if they got the Dunkin' Donuts permission to do this. But imagine being at a card show in 2013, seeing this card available in a PSA 10 for $271.78, and thinking to yourself, should I go nuts and go ahead and get this card? Nah, I'll pass. Only to find out that 12 years later, the card sells for $27,300. That was a Fanatics auction in August of 2025. That is more than a 100x multiplier. The card is more than 100x its value over the course of 12 years. And that's actually quite common for the sort of high-end rare Michael Jordan inserts from the 1990s, of which this is just one example. The bad, and this is a well-known example in the sports card YouTube space, 2021 Donruss Mac Jones rookie, PSA Gem Mint 10. Back in 2021, Mac Jones was the hot young quarterback everybody wanted, and people were desperate to get his new releases. And this was the very first copy of a PSA 10 of the Donruss rookie to hit the market, and it sold for $2,000 on eBay. Today, the card is not worth 1% of that, as a recent sale went for $15. And it's, more than a 99% loss over the course of 4 years. And of course, Mac Jones has not really panned out. But it's also a very good example or good lesson about why you don't want to be the first to buy a card when it first hits the market of a new product, especially of a young, hot player. Because when the very first card hits the market, it's the only one available, especially in a product like donruss. Well, there will eventually be a ton of them. When the first one hits the market, there's only one available, so it feels rare. But wait a few months and there'll be hundreds available. And obviously, supply and demand will take over at that point. And our normal example to keep us grounded, the Worm 1988 Fleer Dennis Rodman rookie, PSA Gem Mint 10, and this is Rodman's only true rookie. Back in 2020, so 5 years ago, the card sold for a little over $1,000. Here's a sale of the card for $1,100 in July 2020, and today the card sells for about $1,800. Here's an $1,800 sale in late September, and yeah, it's about a 64% growth over 5 years. High grade rookie of a key Hall of Famer, all-time great. Yeah, that feels about right and more or less healthy in my view. And on to our number one, good and bad, at least for this video. Start with the good, another non-sports. 1977 Star Wars number 1, Luke Skywalker, PSA Gem Mint 10. Much like the Superman we saw earlier, this is card number 1 for the very first Luke Skywalker card in the very first Star Wars set. Essentially the rookie card of the greatest Jedi in the galaxy far, far away's history. Very condition-sensitive card because of the dark blue borders, easily chipped corners and edges. But a PSA 10 sold back in 2014 for $2,500. That was, basically current market value 11 years ago or so. And for today's value, move that decimal over a couple spots and you'll start to get close. Recently, a PSA 10 just a week ago sold for $268,400, over a $250,000 card. That is well more than a 100x multiplier on this Luke Skywalker card over the course of 11 years. The force is strong with this one, and another example of how key non-sports cards have really seen a major jump in value in high grade recently. And for our number one bad, we're going with 2020 Topps Chrome Lewis Robert base rookie, PSA Gem Mint 10. And Lewis Robert kind of got unlucky in the sense that he was a really hot prospect right when COVID was occurring, and so on top of the hot prospect, bump that players always get, he also got the COVID bump, so his cards were wildly out of whack in terms of how expensive they were. In 2020, this card was selling for over $400. Here's an example of a $420 sale in August of 2020. This card had absolutely no business being worth anywhere near this. It's just a Topps Chrome base card. Even if he was a major star, still it's a pop count probably over 10,000. And again, he had done nothing at that point in his career. For some context, Shohei Ohtani's Topps Chrome rookie in a PSA 10, doesn't sell, and it doesn't even sell that high today. And Ohtani's, maybe the greatest baseball player of all time. So $420 in 2020, and today this PSA 10 base card goes for about $3. Here was a recent sale for $325 about a week ago, and that is well over a 99% loss in value on this card. And our final normal example, Mr. Montana, 1981 Topps Joe Montana rookie in a PSA 10. And only going to go back a couple of years here. In mid-2023, a PSA 10 would sell for around 50 grand. Here's an example of one that sold for just over that in July of 2023. Whereas today, a PSA 10 sells for about 60 grand. The most recent sale a week ago going for exactly 60 grand. So that's a 19% increase in the card's value over the last 2 years. And yeah, that's basically about what I would expect for a key rookie of an all-time great in super high grade. If you were to sort of zoom out and look at a chart long term, that would probably be around what I would call the norm. But that's it. 5 crazy price increases, 5 crazy price decreases, and 5 somewhat normal prices. Hope everybody enjoyed. May the force be with you. Eat your vegetables, and see you all again next time. Thanks, everyone.